Thank you for bearing with us as the Heavers received their Mighty Award. Welcome to this, our information forum. I am going to ask Kieran to do the karakia for us.
So, tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, tuia tato te tangata, ki te kōpapa o te hui nei, ki te kōpapa o te rangi nei, Māori ora, kia tato katoa.
Can you translate it?
Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, breathe life into all of us.
Awesome, thank you very much. So welcome everybody, and of course today we are operating on Teams, and it is being live streamed through that system. If you are not speaking, please keep your microphones muted. And those on Teams, when you want to speak, obviously put your hand up and then you can activate your screen and your volume at that time. I think everybody in the room knows where our ablution block is. There is just a couple of things we have to work through this morning. One is we're going to accept an apologies from Councillor Ellis. She's on other council business somewhere else this morning. Can I have someone just to approve that apology, please? Thank you, Timo. And the order of business today, our first presentation, unfortunately, is running a little bit late, so we are going to have to shuffle our agenda. So, councillors, please bear with me. We've got a few changes happening. I am grateful to see, however, that we have Carl Cheeseman in the room, maybe not. Mark, Mirka, one of the above, are you able to come forward and start your presentation earlier? What? Okay, so councillors, bear with. Okay, we are going to start with it's on your docs on tap, page 39, Annual Dairy Farm Compliance Monitoring Report, and then I'll give you an update about our presenters afterwards. Thank you. Let's try page 51. Thanks. Welcome, team.
Kia ora everyone, through the chair. My name is Ardi Ash, team leader for soil and contaminants. With me, I have Warren Sharp from EHS undertaking the work on background sampling late last year. So first of all, we just want to tell you what is background. Background refers to naturally occurring ambient concentration of the contaminants in soils in a local area, reflecting the geology and is not resulting from a specific contaminating activity. So that's the background. So why is important? There we go. Yes, so that's the definition. So why is important? Because it's a regulatory baseline. Basically, the National Environmental Standard for assessing and managing contaminant in soils to protect human health only applies if the concentration of contaminants is above these background levels. So it is important. On the other hand, also it's the benchmark for clean fill. So if we have an excavated load of soils, again, if the concentration of contaminants, only if it's at or below the background, is considered as a clean fill and can be disposed or just reused. So it's very important. So to just give you some context on a current number we're using, In 2021, in preparation for plan change, we asked Landcare Research, which is the Crown Research Institute, to update the 2015 clean field values based on a new national guidelines like waste means, ecological guidelines, as well as 2017 GNS samplings. And that was provided to councils in October 2021 in an issues and options report. And then in 2023, the national background study was also completed. We reviewed and we come up with the new numbers in 2023. And last years, to validate those numbers, we done further samplings in 13 locations across 7 townships across the Tasman, including Richmond, Mapua, Motueka, Takaka, Murchison, Brightwater, and Wakefield, and mainly from public reserves and parks. We collected the top 10 centimeters of the soils and sent to Hill Laboratories for analysis for 8 heavy metals plus polycyclic aromatic, hydrocarbons, as well as organochlorine pesticides. And here I summarize the result for you. So as you see in the second column, that's the result from last year's study, and none of them exceeds the 2023 values, which means, 2023 values are still appropriate to use. However, lead particularly and zinc has a, least, margin. And also we encourage Nelson City Councils to do parallel study. And in a third column, as you see, Tasman Nelson, if we combine values together, the numbers are still consistent with us, just lead exits. Compared to national background, as we expected, because we have a mineral belt, chromium and nickel, and to some extent copper was higher than national background. And of course, all well below the human health ecological guidelines. So what the background data shows now? So as I said, verifies the existing values we use. Lead and zinc, has the least headroom compared to 2023 numbers, and all, well below the human health standard as well as ecological standards, and consistent with Nelson. So in terms of organic contaminants, which was PAHs, just half of the samples, detected in half of the samples, but well below the clean field guidelines. Again, DDT, just 2 samples detected, well below the clean field guidelines. And overall, no exceedance compared to 2023 values. So takeaways, yes, as I said, this, verifies that the number at the moment we're using is appropriate. Nickel and chromium is affiliated to the mineral belt. There is a potential to have the same number with Nelson. And one new thing that we're taking part in a new research to develop a new methodology, because at the moment it's just based on what's naturally in the soils. The new methodology is risk assessed. So in other words, we define a background to the level which is the safe for the most sensitive, organisms, and it makes sense. So yes, thank you for your time, and if any questions, me or Warren hopefully could address.
Paul.
So your research is on natural contaminants. Do you do human-induced contaminants also? And I was wondering, with the work that's coming through, is there any potential for the land, because of contamination, not to be able to be used for particularly food production?
So for food production, basically NESCS doesn't apply. That's the exemptions. Um, but I mean, one of the things, I mean, we always consider, I mean, apart from the NESCS, which is particularly for human health protections, is ecological guidelines to just make sure all the organisms within a soil is safe. But the new methodology is a completely different, things, because at the moment we have a like ambient, in the definitions, the background concentration. I mean, we have ambient. Ambient means if there is a contaminations coming from diffuse source, is still accepted, but not from point source. So that's the current, definition of the background. But because it doesn't make sense because we want to reuse the soils more, and I mean every 1 centimeter of the soils takes 100 years to be formed. So we just want to improve this efficiency. That's why I think Southland and Otago already started to use the different background, which is a new methodology, different definitions. But at the moment, the numbers, we just want to make sure the numbers that we develop in 2023 is still valid, and it is, but it's just based on a definition, which is just natural background.
Yeah. Okay.
If you have,
Yeah, I was going to add your question around human, and anthropogenic is what you're talking about. So they are natural elements, but of course we increase their concentration. So lead and arsenic are the common ones, probably drive most of what we do in this country. Lead and arsenic and asbestos, all three are natural. So that's that aspect. And then with regards production, like use for growing vegetables, so the NES does have a component of human health risk from vegetable intake in it. But then, MAF have their own set of numbers, particularly for pesticides. And lead and arsenic were a pesticide. Yeah. So that's part of that, but that wasn't what we were assessing. It's a different question. The numbers are actually quite a bit higher than background. Arsenic, probably the only one that gets close, but that's naturally right across the country. Arsenic in New Zealand is quite high, just because of our
Last question,
geology.
Madam Chair. So doing this work, and you want to know the numbers, but what's the value for us?
as I said, we used to use different levels up to 2023. And then, as I said, in 2023, we asked the land care to just come up with the new numbers, because based on a new science, new research, because we got the new guidelines from Waste Means for ecological, guidelines, as well as the main thing was GNS sampling. So the previous number was based on a 2015, results. But after that, in 2017, GNS done further sampling in Tasman. So it made sense for us to just update those numbers.
Yeah, no, I understand the updating, but I'm trying to understand what benefit for TDC and our community there is in actually, one, knowing the numbers and applying the numbers.
So, as I said, it's really important to know to which level is a natural contamination. That's the key things. And this regulation is based on that. So if, we get if you just excavated your gardens, soils, and if you want to dispose it to, clean field, if it's like above a specific volume, it should meet these numbers. Okay. That's a baseline. In a nutshell, I would say it's a baseline. If it's above this, it means anthropogenic activities. There is a source, like anthropogenic source. If it's at or below, for all regions, we recognize those numbers as our background. We say that's fine.
I understand. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just get Rob Smith to respond? Thank you.
Just through the chair, just to clarify. So at the moment, if a soil is at background, then it's considered normal, clean soil.
Yep.
As soon as it's over that background, then there's a whole lot of other rules that come into apply. And in Tasman, because, of course, we loved lead arsenate spray 100 years ago, a lot of our soils can't be shifted from site to site, and that means a consent's required, and it has an impact. And then it also, at a particular level, means it can't be shifted to a site that would be used for other means. So it's just all around the consent regime that applies.
Management of soils.
Management of the soils.
Yeah.
So what Artie's doing here is actually saying the results are really good. They back up what staff have been doing. So staff have been on a safe path. We haven't been excessive about those limits, but they are looking at opportunities to make sure we stay as practical and as pragmatic as possible.
So we're saying in principle, Madam Chair, when soils moved around the district, it should really only be done once it's clearly tested and consented, or how does the process work?
Above a specific volume, I think 50 cubic meters, I think we have a permitted, activity. But above a specific volume of soils, yes, it needs to be tested by the practitioners, qualified practitioners, and they provide us with the results. We review, and if it meets those criteria, it's fine. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you, Rob, for your response as well. Deputy Mayor Brent.
I'm just going to try and make sense. Thank you, Madam Chair. Make sense of my question. So if I look at the table on page 54, the other sites and the raw testing data, is that right?
54.
So it's table 1, Tasman urban soil background sampling, milligrams per kg. Is that the background data that's put on the other side?
Is that the original report you're referring
Yes,
to?
the original report, yeah.
Let me just bring it up.
It's probably page 2 of yours. Page 2?
I haven't got it in front of me, but that report, it will have the raw data. That's the raw data.
Yep.
Yeah. And then that summary was a 95% upper confidence limit value.
So the summary that we saw on those ones and the levels, and the lead was the only one that was over last year's, 99,
Yeah.
is derived from the raw data from that table.
Yes.
So we actually have, in fact, some areas within Tasman that are over the acceptable levels,
Individual samples.
individual samples.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of the raw data, are there specific, I think there is in the report you've mentioned, specific areas that breach the national standard?
No. So the national standard is a health-based standard.
Yes.
This is the issue right across the country with the regulation is we have this word background in the National Environmental Standard and in the RMA and stuff. So that's the trigger.
Yeah.
And so that's part of what the work is. And it probably should also be added that a lot of the original data that Artie referenced was more national, samples from the middle of the mountains.
Yeah.
So they're genuine natural background. So we were looking to see if urban background
Yes.
was consistent with those numbers. And apart from lead, which is marginal,
Yes.
everything else is pretty good.
I couldn't get over one of the sites that had 11 for arsenic because it may be somewhere close to me.
Yes.
But 11 for arsenic could be background. Like I said, arsenic it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere in New Zealand. It really is.
But the key part is, even in the raw data, there's nothing that breaches the national
No,
level.
not a human health-based standard, no.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your question, Mike.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Artie and everybody, I don't know who to address this to, but we're just looking mainly at urban areas here for heavy metals, not rural, which as another can of worms as well, I would suggest.
Yes, urban, but that's the worst case. That's
Yeah.
why it was done. So like I just explained, the numbers, the 2023 numbers include rural values. They include natural forests. They include the alpine environment. So we were looking to see whether most of the soil that's moved, which is from the urban environment or near urban environment, would fit within those numbers.
Okay. and
So
one last
the issue is that we wanted to make sure that every bit of soil that was being dug up wasn't going to go to a landfill, basically.
That's the story. And the other thing is, through resource consents, we get a lot of soil sampling as part of the resource consent issue Does this go into your database as well? And then that will obviously bring up hotspots or green spots or whatever you want to call them.
Yes, we have a well-maintained register and all captured in our registers. So, and at the moment, actually, we have a project to improve our registers, have a special, layers. Yes, that's ongoing. And
No. So I think your question was, do we use data from sampling on different sites for this exercise? The answer is no, and that's A, because of mining that data would be very difficult and time consuming, and part of it is because the reason that investigation was done. So most investigations on potentially contaminated sites are targeted. So they're looking for contamination, whereas we were looking to determine an urban background. We're not looking, as a matter of fact, in that study, we screened sites first to make sure we weren't sampling contaminated sites. Yeah? So that's the difference. So that the reports that come in, a site has been flagged because it might be in the register or for a similar reason. And so we're sampling to determine whether those soils are going to need to be managed or not. Yeah? Cool.
Okay, we're going to have Dean, and then after him will be Mark Greening.
Thank you. Trying to understand, did you say that there's a 50 square metre or something number that's able to be moved from site to site without going through the testing process?
yeah,
So within the National Environmental Standard legislation, there is a permitted activity allowance, and it's based on the area of the activity. So it's a volume-based number. So it's to disturb contaminated soils is currently 25 cubic metres per 500 square metres of activity. It's a really difficult piece of legislation, which we hope will quietly go away with the reform, because well, in my opinion, as an active consultant, it's unfair because you can have some sites that might move 10 cubic metres of soil and require a consent, versus sites that might move 500 cubes of soil and not require a consent. Yeah, so that's the difficulty with the system. So it's a controlled activity rule based on the volume of disturbance based on the area of disturbance. So it's a difficult. There's no simple answer, but roughly anything less than say 10 cubes shouldn't need a consent.
10 cube.
Yeah.
See, I'm just trying to think.
It's nothing. It's a difficult, for want of a better word, annoying piece of legislation. Well, that rule is.
For example, somebody that may drive a hydrovac truck goes to a site, sucks up, 10 cubes with the water involved, and then there's nowhere to dump it in the region apart from a landfill, which is
In any region.
horrendously expensive. So, but are you saying that 10 cubes could...
The trick is the legislation says disturbance or removal of contaminated soil. That's the key word. So if you have a high degree of confidence that what you're picking up is not contaminated, it shouldn't be a problem. The issue specifically with hydrovac is how do you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the
That's
cost...
the difficulty. So, I work across the country, but I sit in Canterbury. It's a big issue there. And ECAN are currently writing or have commissioned a piece of work to try and deal with exactly that question. So
Are we going to able to piggyback off their work?
it's the contract association there, so I'm sure you can.
Because
The issue with hydrovac is it's a sludge.
exactly,
Right?
nobody
So
wants
it's the water content that's difficult to manage. As soon as the water's out, you can sample what's left behind. Yeah? Yeah, but it's a different topic.
Well, kind of,
Yeah, kind of.
because it's finding somewhere to take it. Like we used to be able to take it, for example, to the gravel crushing plants. Then they said, no, we don't want it because it doesn't come with certification and we don't want the risk. So then it's like, where does it go? So it...
Yeah, look, ideally with that sort of material, you'd have a place where you could dry it, then you can sample it. And as soon as you sample it, you know where it can go. Yeah? The operators I know of... Sorry.
No, no.
I might just jump in here to say that Rob's itching to add to this conversation. Thanks, Rob.
If that's okay, through the chair. So there's two things here. So one is a lot of the hydrovac trucks, when they're cleaning sumps, we know the sumps are really dirty because they get all of the carbon black and zinc and copper from road users. So that's quite a different argument to a hydrovac truck that's cleaning, say, on a footpath to clean out a power cable or whatever. So yeah,
You're just confusing the topic because like cleaning is only a small part of what we do. Like they do search for services.
yeah. So
That's a big part.
So that's what Warren's talking about. It just needs managing. But at a national level, Warren was polite to say that this legislation, all legislation is lovely, isn't it? But sometimes there's a lot of unintended consequences. And for a region that has had 120 plus years of horticultural history with using the best scientific evidence at the time to manage that activity, which, for a long period of time was lead arsenic sprays, we have so it's not just us, it's Canterbury and Hawke's Bay and a lot of other regions. We have a lot of issue with trying to manage soil across the district. And so the Mayor has been really active with ministers at trying to get them to address this issue, because it's an issue nationally, shifting soil, because as Artie said earlier, soil is an incredibly valuable and long-lived product, and we don't want to waste it. The last thing we want to see is soil buried in a landfill that could have been productive soil for vegetable growing. So it's about trying to get legislation that's fit for purpose for the regions like us that had large pip fruit. It's a history of pip fruit growing areas. So Hawke's Bay, Canterbury, us. So part of the work that the team's doing is trying to find pragmatic answers for our developers and right down to people who are trying to put in a shed on a small lot and they need to shift 12 cube of soil. So it's a problem right across, and the team, by doing this work, is trying to establish ways that we can work within the rules that enables people, because as a council we want to be enabling. But as Warren said, the legislation doesn't always help us here. It doesn't always give us a sensible outcome. So there's quite an active lobby across the country to fix these kind of rules. And we absolutely piggyback on anybody else who's doing work that we can grab. We will absolutely grab that. And that's one of the benefits of Artie works part of a national group, but Warren works across the country on these things. So we're constantly trying to leverage opportunity and get our say. And I think we've written to the Minister twice in the last couple of years highlighting these very issues, that we are wasting soil by not being able to treat it as a productive item. We're treating it as a waste product, and it's absolutely, in most cases, is absolutely not a waste product, but we do have to manage where it goes, and that's kind of the team's job, making sure where it ends up is safe for the broader environment, not just that it's usable for gardening or whatever. But it's a nightmare space, and there's a lot of unintended consequences, which is why Artie is careful with what he's saying.
If I may.
Yes, Dan?
So just in terms of the Nelson, working with Nelson, what does that look like? What are we doing in that space?
Is going to do this work for us, and I think they just done this in 12 locations, and those results telling that it really makes sense to have a same number at some point, because willingness should be, from both sides. But I think it was good that at the same time, Nelson done this, survey we have done, results are here, quite consistent, and in scenario, I don't know, whatever happened with, amalgamation or so, I think everything ready if we want to have same number, which makes sense, because a small region having two numbers is not really practical.
Thank you, and thank you, Rob, for your explanation. Okay, Mark Greening.
Thanks, Chair. That was certainly an interesting discussion. I suppose in terms of soil movement for development, finding pragmatic answers for developers, I mean, it's probably another reason not to develop rural one land like in Mapua, which has a heavy history of pit fruit growing and contamination. My question really is in relation to the sampling. So I'm just interested to know, across the 30 so sites that you sampled, were they based on the 2023 sites, like you just resampled the same sites, or did you apply a more random approach to site selection outside of those that you've clearly excluded? And did they include new urban sites recently developed that would have had soil moved to those sites?
2023 numbers is based on a GNS sampling and mainly from, native vegetations. That's different. But background, as I said, definition of background, it's not really doesn't really matter that it's from urban or rural, because that's a natural, basically that's a natural concentration of contaminants in soils. But no, those were based on the GNS samplings, not our samplings, the best knowledge that we had at the time. And these times, we just went to the reserves and parks. And before that, we done some desktop study to make sure there is no known, contaminating activity is not on a register as a hail. We done some desktop study to make sure there is no history of contamination, anthropogenic, contaminations. And then, yes, we just contacted Warren and but yeah, new sites. But as I said, definition of the background somehow justified, because background is just about the geology, and there's no anthropogenic expected. But if you add something.
Yeah, just to add to that, so the sites were selected to just provide a spread across the different urban environments and the different areas, and then it was easily accessible council-owned land rather than private land. And then, like Artie said, they were all pre-screened. So in terms of newer subdivisions, I guess the answer is, I'm trying to think if any of them were. The answer is probably no, but that'll be more to the case of that the new subdivisions are controlled by the NES anyway. So they would have all been done under that banner. And so we sort of know what's there. So it's more focused on the existing urban environment, which is where we would expect to see contamination higher than what you would determine as background. So that was kind of the basis for the work.
So just to summarise what I thought I heard it said was basically the sampling was done across mainly council-owned reserves and parks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But spread across the different urban environments.
Yeah. You also mentioned in the report within range. So I'm just wondering, was that upper, lower level? Where in that range? You referred to 2023 and the new sample sizing being within range.
I think the main thing for us compared to 2023 was that the current numbers that we got last year doesn't exceed 2023. That was the main, I think, point for us. And then I just, during my presentation, I just compared it against the national, national backgrounds as well as guidelines. So, but basically, the main purpose, brief of this piece of work was to just make sure the number we developed in 2023 is appropriate. And none of the, samples across 30 locations exceed any of those. So that was the main thing for us.
Yeah, so within that range though, had it gone up or was it lower? Was it at the upper end of the range or the lower end of the range or the middle of the range?
I will bring it back if I can.
It depends on the contaminant.
Yeah, exactly.
So lead was very, very close to the number. Zinc was pretty close. The rest of them were pretty much.
Yeah.
The range would have been, I think you mentioned before that some of the numbers, the leads, I think in particular, we had a few above the number, but overall they were below. But lead's really the only one that was close. The rest of them from memory were all well under.
Exactly. And also organic contaminants like DDT, like I think around like 10 times lower than the clean field, as well as the PAHs. So yeah, we achieved what we aimed for in a nutshell.
Cool. Thank you.
Mark, is that you finished with your questions?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, just conscious of time, so we're going to call it a wrap there. I know, but Paul has already had an opportunity to speak.
Just one question, and that is a summary of how you guys are looking at the land.
Excuse me, Paul, if you're going to speak, even though I said we were going to call it a wrap, please put your mic on so others can hear.
Madam Chair, I consider this subject very important because it's all about resilience intergenerationally of the key asset of the area, whenua, land. And I'm interested in an overview from our officers of the overall state of it. We understand there's systems to measure that, but if there's any policies that may be considered to not only improve it, the soil state, and or not going forward. And I'm not asking for it tomorrow, but, you know, a view from the officers on where we're at, because as I say, it's intergenerational. I've thought about this and looked on this. We value land, dollar-wise. In my view, we should be clearly understanding soil health.
Exactly.
There's a difference between the value of the asset. The value is in the soil health. So for a resilient community, we need to have a high-level overview of it. Kia ora.
So thank you. Good question. Actually, another work stream I look after is productive land, and every 5 years, based on a budget that currently we have, I will go personally to 30 sites across 37 sites across the region, and take samples just for soil health, looking at the biological, chemical, and physical attributes, and look at the trends compared to last 5 years. The trend is improving or just decreasing. Yes, that's a different, work streams I look after, that we just check on the soil health every 5 years and going to different land uses from, market gardens to horticultures to forests to all kind of those. Yes, that's the other thing we look after, my team.
Thank you. It's good to know. Be interested to be informed of it in June.
Thank you for the question. Yeah,
Thank you.
perfect.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you very much, Warren, Ardi, and Muka for coming in and presenting. We look forward to hearing more from you in the future. Okay, so just an update for councillors. We are no longer having our presentation from Kumanu today. Apparently there is a misunderstanding and some correspondence about a day for the meeting. Not too sure how that happened, but anyway, we look forward to them coming at an alternative date to come and do their presentation. Now we are going to ask if Carl Cheeseman and Mark might be able to come up and do that annual dairy farm compliance monitoring report, which I do believe is on page 39.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Lewis. I'm a freshwater compliance officer. Today, I'm submitting for your information the annual dairy compliance monitoring report for the past dairy season. The purpose of this program is to assess compliance with the dairy effluent requirements of the Tasman Resource Management Plan and to ensure risks to waterways, groundwater and the wider environment are being appropriately managed. Overall, the results continue to show high levels of compliance. We completed inspections of the 112 dairy farms across the district, and the report summarises the compliance outcomes, as well as the actions taken by council staff. The key messages from this year's report, monitoring report, is that compliance across the district remains strong. Most farmers are operating well-managed effluent systems, and the number of non-compliance issues remains low. Where the issues were identified, they were followed up through Council's compliance processes and ensured appropriate environmental outcomes. I'm free to take questions.
Dean.
Yeah, good to see that we're all reasonably compliant. Just one question. When you're looking at dairy farms, do you look at runoff blocks or just the main farm?
Through the chair. We look at the dairy farm. Farm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Kieran.
Thank you. I just have a quick question where it says that for the first time in 10 years, we've dropped below the 90% or greater achievement of full compliance. Do you think that's due to a change in practice or a change in regulation?
Through the chair. I think we had some aging systems that were showing some signs of concrete cracking. There was a few that had wedge pits and concrete infrastructure that showed signs of wear, which we focused heavily on this season. So we have made improvements in simple areas that prevent any leaching through cracks in concrete, nibbing and things like that. I don't think it's anything to do with changes in policy. It's just that we were focused on that this time.
And just another question based on the fact that currently all of the monitoring is covered through ratepayers. Do you have an estimated total amount that we're spending on this monitoring?
Through the chair, I don't, sorry.
Must be 500,000. You've been doing
Rob.
2 people, overheads.
Okay, Kieran, do you have any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to Celia.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks for the report. And my question is along similar lines as to just looking at how we have gone below 90%, whether or not it is actually due to maintenance and perhaps aging infrastructure. You know, we did so well and a lot of things were put in place, but maybe it's a question of keeping the maintenance up. So that was my first question. And the second question was when there are situations of, you know, silage that's wrapped in plastic and it's getting, you know, really old and it's maybe decomposing and leaking a bit, I'm just wondering whether that, you know, as to what monitoring will pick that up. And it may not be this dairy monitoring, it may be something else, but it would be interesting to know that. Thanks. Because that can run into waterways.
Through the chair. Yes, leachate from silage and hay silage is a contaminant and will be something that's looked at during the freshwater farm plans as a risk to freshwater. At the moment, it's something that we have conversations with farmers, dairy farmers, on our visits. But that's the extent of it. It's a conversation about how they're managing that leachate. But we anticipate that'll be something that'll be looked at during the freshwater farm plans when they are landed in the near future.
Okay, thanks. And just in relation to just following up on the facilities, the infrastructure for managing the stuff from dairy farming, the effluent. Are you recommending to people that they might need to renew their, what they've got, if they've got maybe a clay pond that's leaking or concrete that's broken or whatever? Are you recommending that they move on to something that is actually maybe more efficient and higher standard, or are you saying, well, you could just do a repair to that, which might actually cause the problem to still be there in the next assessment?
Through the chair, on-farm conversations are always recommending the best possible product out there. Limited leverage if the current system is compliant, and they're receptive to information that we can provide. We're always looking for the best possible outcome for the environment, be it a Tasman tank or a fully lined pond. They're always going to be better than a clay-lined pond, but if they are compliant and there's no evidence of leaching that we can see, then our leverage is minimal to get them to change. It's quite an expense for them. But we have seen in the past few years quite a lot of farms upgrade their systems from clay-lined ponds to Tasman tanks or lined ponds. There has been an uptake. It's been really good.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
I'll
very
try
much.
that again, Timo, sorry.
Just following on from Councillor Fernieho's comment about the cost of dairy farming, monitoring. If we don't have those figures available at the moment, can we get those circulated subsequent to the meeting, please, together with a clarification as to why these costs are covered by ratepayers rather than on charge to those who are being monitored?
Through the chair. So there is currently 2 FTEs basically monitoring the dairy. That's wider than the dairy effluent, which is a TRMP rule, because it incorporates now all the other parts of the components of the freshwater regulations, such as the synthetic nitrogen and other things. So 2 FTEs are basically managing that. So it's the cost of 2 FTEs plus overheads and transport cost of fuel, which is part of those overhead costs. So that's kind of the cost. There's no other sort of capital expense with us. It's just those 2 staff members.
Yeah. So can we get that circulated after the meeting?
Yeah. And in regards to the cost recovery, I mean, I guess it's part of that permitted activity kind of conversation about fees and charges in the schedule, which we've also touched on in the past. Is we can technically, under the new amendments to the Section 36 charges framework, and we have incorporated in fees and charges, is to adopt a fee for dairy farm permitted activity monitoring. We haven't currently done that, but there is ability under the permitted activity regime and the charges to recover some of that cost. We'd have to make a decision that we were going to do that. Council's typically steered away from doing that with our dairy sector over years. But now there is a mechanism in place that we can apply that. The freshwater farm planning regime, when that is lands, will also carry that ability, because there is a fee structure built into that. So there is potential to recover a lot more of this cost.
So who makes the decision whether or not we recover or not?
We can, but that's ultimately the question: is does the councillors want to do that? The council itself can do that operationally. We have the legal mechanism to do that now.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Just interested, you mentioned the fact that this year that you've been reviewing compliance, you were focusing on some aged infrastructure, like concrete. Do you signal that before before the start of the year that this will be our focus this year to those who you're investigating, or is it spot check? Surprise.
Through the chair, it's not indicated at all. It's a spot check, and I guess through conversations with me and my colleague, it was something that we were concentrating on together collectively. There's a few other practices we were also looking at to try and increase or change behaviours to try and stop any kind of chance of ponding of effluent on ground. Yeah.
So now that you've done that spot check and you've identified a few issues, do you signal then to, do you follow it up the following year that everyone should be expecting that we'll be looking at that and we might do a spot check in something else just to signal that we want some compliance in this area, or how do you manage the compliance? Or do people go, oh, they've done the concrete check, we don't need to worry about that now? You know, that's kind of what I'm trying to drill at.
Through the chair, no, it's ongoing. So every year it's a similar inspection. We inspect from the cowshed all the way through to the irrigator, or effluent discharge mechanism, and all the infrastructure's looked at. It's just this year we made a extended effort to go around and check all the concrete nibbing of the infrastructure around the cowshed and any wedge, or if they had a concrete saucer pit that had edging on it. All of that was quite intensively looked at, and we just identified certain areas where there was maybe a crack that could potentially provide an access point for leaching, and got them to remedy that and provide us with evidence that they've done so.
Yeah. And just following on from the earlier discussion about the silage potential leakage, and I was just listening to that conversation quite interestingly. You mentioned something along the lines that you look at their farm plan. Do you actually do more than just look at their farm plan? Do you actually go in and inspect the assets as part of that farm plan, so that when they say their silage is not leaking, that you've confirmed that, or do you just go off the written document only?
Through the chair, I was referring to the landing of the freshwater farm plans that is still to happen. So at the moment there isn't a plan that they provide us. So it's just through conversations on farm.
Right. So we're moving to this farm plan process.
Correct.
Where they do that. So will we be actively kicking the tires again, maybe randomly on elements of their farm plan, or do we just take it as given until we pick something up later down the track?
Through the chair, that legislation's still being landed, so I'm not sure what capacity will be involved yet.
Right. Okay. So still being landed. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call that a wrap. I just do want to circle back to the conversation around Timo asking, and also Kieran, around at minute it's costs covered by ratepayers. So that is something that we could discuss as councillors if you didn't want that to continue along that path, because my understanding it's now permitted for us to do that through fees and charges, and we could look at that through the long-term plan. Mark, thank you for coming, presenting. Thanks for answering our questions. Appreciate the mahi that you've put in. Councillors, we're now going to move, again, a bit of a shuffle on the agenda. We're going to go to the Compliance Water Consent Monitoring Report. So, Carl, if you want to stay where you are, you might want Ash to come and join you. So, councillors, we now move to page 124 on your agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First thing was that you had made a comment, sort of message to me this morning or yesterday about the images of some of the documents. Do you want us to circulate those? Because they were hard to read, I have to say. They didn't come through very well. Can I pass them around? Oh, thank you. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Ash, who's now currently circulating around the room. So Ash is our compliance, she's known as a compliance coordinator, so her position sort of, for councillors who would have known Vicky, Ash has sort of stepped into Vicky's role and has kind of now taken on more responsibility, wears more hats as a sort of like a business analysis and administrator for us. So part of her role and why she's involved with this is that she does a lot of the heavy lifting in this water space. There's a lot of data management, a lot of development. And as you see through the report, a lot of the change that's coming through here is part of that process that Ash has been involved in developing and enhancing the process. So that's why Ash is sitting next to me. She's a very important part of this role. I don't really think other than that I'd need to go through the report, and I'd be more than happy to just go to questions. The report is a summary of the year, but it's more an insight into where we are going with the program and the developments we made. So happy to take questions on that, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yep, that's fine. Thank you. Kit.
Yeah, thanks for the report. What I'm noting is that it's becoming more automated and there is less paper methods. If I remember when I first started reading these and attending Dry Weather Task Force meetings, we had a mixture of 3 different ways of people complying, and more of it is becoming automated, but you've still got some 1 or 2 old-fashioned people still. Would that be fair?
That's a very good, good summary of it. There are a few. We are trying to you sort of winkle them off of the need for paper. We stopped providing the meter returns, which were at one point in time the only way a lot of people return their weekly water usage. It was expensive. It was at a cost to council, and it was also slow. And as the mail service slowed down even more, it became even less useful in regards to managing people's weekly returns. So by providing a lot more of the modern electronic technology and the various apps that we've provided, most people have moved, but there are a few, not many, but they're all hanging on and they find ways around it. Not quite sure how we're going to deal with them, but we'll just have to deal with them and get through it.
Mike?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I noticed in the water monitoring database, you got 1,444 consents. Not all are subject to metering obligations. Can you give me a bit of a heads up of why we can't meter all of the consents, and are we going to?
There's a number of consents that don't have that obligation because they're for their activities basically out of the irrigation and other water take schemes. I use an example of some of our hydro schemes and others. They do have a metering thing, but they're not part of the WCM. So there are a number of users out there that do take water for various reasons, but they're not subject to this particular program. For what they are, they may be taken and diversion and put back in and other various things. Yep.
Dean.
Thanks. On your interesting findings chart, number 2, one user took 1 million cubes, is it? I was just wondering, was that within permit, and what kind of use was that?
Is this for the AI demonstration page?
Past season 2025-26, 5 most interesting findings. It's on my page 137.
Wait, hang on. I'll have to go through that through the chair, councillor.
You've got a graphic there.
Is that factual or is that?
I believe it is not. It is a fake example.
Through the chair, it's not a factual one. It was a demonstration of the AI development that's going. So that's what those will look like. So that's not actually off of the current database. Confusing, but yeah, it's a representation of where we will be going with these, because these are the sort of things that I think we can make publicly available as snapshots, which are quite a useful insight for consumers. Plus, there's lots of vision for how we can grow this space, and we've got a lot of clever people kind of doing work on this. So that's an example of what we will be able to present to committees and to anyone who's Dry Weather Task Force is a classic example.
Right. Okay. So in terms of AI, for example, now that most people are on automated sending of data, do we not have a system that can automatically respond for people who don't send in their data? Because that would be a very easy AI solution, rather than us sending 1,200 texts or emails, whatever.
It's a tricky question. The thing I think most important.
Yeah, thanks.
Through the chair, the reality is that there is still going to be some reconciliation required. So when we have a run report that sits in the background, looking at the missing readings, we do need to validate that before. So AI potential. I don't know the scope of what we can do with the system, but it is growing, and it may be a question that Ash can jump in on. But I think at the moment there's still a lot of human oversight required before we start. It's systems are systems, but I think Ash might be a better person to respond to in regards to the technical.
Through the chair, yeah, I can lightly speak on that. At the moment, we're sort of in phase 1 of our AI focus. The focus is making sure that with all of the streams of data that are coming in, then we're using AI to better understand and collate that data for our decision making. The next phase would actually be looking at what our key priorities around, where our slow areas are for communications, or where we can better optimize the automation side of the AI. But at the moment, the focus of AI really is just a reporting dashboard and a way of collating and having better oversight of larger groups of data. And where we can go with that will really depend on where the bottlenecks are in terms of our communications. And we'll just continue to layer on that automation and AI focus once we can see where there is like a really clean and easy to manage opportunity for better utilising it.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair, like at the reminder stage, just a automatic text or whatever that goes out that just says, check, we may not have received your report. Could you check you've sent one? Will be an easy fix.
Okay, Paul.
My question was, when there's overtake, what happens there?
Through the chair. So depending on the level of the overtake, the initial thing is a contact. I mean, obviously after assessment of the information that's been provided to validate it. I mean, we have to go through a stage of understanding what it is. There are some nuances in regards to overtakes, in regards to the plus or minus 5% for a metre error. So we have to calculate where it sits in regards to the level of the overtake and what it might constitute. And then it's a follow-up to understand that overtakes can be for a number of reasons. People's data entry skills are not always great. So we get a lot of problems with people not accurate in their information they put into the system, particularly if they've got direct access through portals. It doesn't take much in the way of a wrong number to indicate an overtake. So not all of them are genuine overtakes. For those that are, we will engage with them to try and understand what it is. If it's over the 5% minus a metre error, then we will look for an explanation. If there's substantial overtakes, then they will probably escalate a lot more rapidly in regards to us going out there. We will probably go and audit the meter to understand where it is. So it just really depends on the level of it. But so it's kind of a nuanced sort of approach. But if there's substantive overtakes, it generally will kick us off reasonably quickly.
Yeah. It's not a regular. I mean, people that are overtaking purposefully, can you monitor that through your system?
Yes, and that's the whole beauty of the WCM as it sits now. As it's and with further enhancement, it will be able to be. We are much more timely in our management and monitoring of any of these activities. And as a result, we will get onto them straight away. But those overtakes show up rapidly anyway. We pick them up straight away. Yeah. So they are a priority. Yeah. Missing readings are a priority, but overtakes are a...
So final question, Madam Chair, was with where we're going with our consent system and AI monitoring, I was wondering if you're potentially progressing to work with the soil people and contaminants, those people, to be able to get a view or provide advice to landowners about optimal drawdowns on the consents.
Through the chair, hadn't really thought about it. We have obligations to, and it's part of a program for us. I think is to push for irrigation management plans, because the freshwater farm planning regime is changing quite a lot as well, and so there's a lot of properties now that would have been subject to freshwater farm planning and are potentially not going to be. But a lot of these consented takes do have irrigation management plans and have a way of managing their irrigation, which is quite useful insight, and we can require them to provide that, and that sort of information also feeds into the wider management of our not just our water resource, but the practices on farms.
Yep.
And that.
So, I mean, my comment really is that AI will be able to assist us do an analytical work in this area. And really, from my point of view, it's how our system can add value and conserve water.
And through the chair, that is exactly where I think this development will go, is our ability to produce detailed reports to a lot of audiences, be it through to the public, to the water consent holders themselves, through to our science group and anyone else who's kind of interested in what water use is happening, how people are using their water, because yep, absolutely.
Rob, have you got something else you'd like to add?
Yeah, just through the chair, just because I love talking. On the back of what Carl was saying around the irrigation management plans, the other side of this, of course, to pump water is expensive. So to have that consent's expensive. So most of our, you'll notice a lot of our growers are getting quite modernised, and the whole, Internet of Things. So they already have soil probes, because essentially any water that leaves the root zone is wasted water. And from a contaminant point of view, from RD soils, any water that leaves the root zone starts to carry things, into an area where it's not being utilised. So one of the really nice benefits, and this is another outcome of the DIP, is being able to update the water consent monitoring database for modern systems, so we can send, and we do send alerts out to our users on the Waimea Plains when we hit particular triggers, so they're proactively told, because now those cut-offs are fast. It's not waiting till next Monday, which is the old system, but it's also the ability to adapt how we can then feed that data out, so we can spot trends, so that the value of the data becomes more, the better the quality of the data we capture. So it's a really nice feedback. So in time, and the stuff that Ash has shown you with some of that AI, that's reporting, but actually that two-way street, the whole Internet of Things, will really give us some advantages across council, not just in water, but the water will be one of those input feeds. So you will start to see a lot more, hopefully, adaptable and modern approach to water management. And we really do see it in our farmers, because that all of their input costs are expensive. Electricity is expensive, so they are using this tech, and we will be part of that to enable them.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good wrap on that report too. Thank you. Just a little takeout from me is that when you copy and paste off another report, Carl, that's when we can't read these, just for future reference. Thank you for the work that you've put in. Welcome, Ash, to the team. Appreciate the conversations that we've had and the value of why our water. So, councillors, we are going to adjourn now and have a tea break. We'll be back in here. Let's say 11 o'clock. Just a bit of an extra break. We were just waiting on a couple of staff. We are going to move, councillors, to the water and waste operations update with Mike and Richard. And for us, councillor, it's on page 140 in your agenda. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, councillors. I'll take the report as read. Just got a couple of updates here further to the report. So we recently responded to the direction from the water regulator for the Dovedale scheme about our plan going forward. It certainly has changed a bit from our original plan, so we gave them an update. But they responded that it does not satisfy the authority at this time, and on further queries and working through it with them, they wanted a bit more certainty on the type of treatment, the barriers that we'd be putting in place, and the time frames. However, that is difficult to do because we are still testing the water quality, we're still testing the bore flows to determine we've got enough bore there. And once that is confirmed, we then need to apply for a resource consent, and then we do the detailed design of the treatment plant. The bores, the initial investigations are really promising. The flows are good. One of the bores has some evidence of manganese, but we can work through that and treat that. So it is still our intention to meet the drinking water standards, the requirements under the drinking water rules, and have this completed by mid-2028. So we're giving them that reassurance, and we think it should be sorted. At the Motueka wastewater treatment plant, we've been very pleased with the performance of the new SCUV, the supercritical ultraviolet treatment. It has given us a lot of more confidence in the managing the levels in the pond and managing high levels of flow through rain events and so on. And it certainly is performing really well. The final item I'm going to discuss this morning is just the woodlands relining has gone well. We have found a bit more than we expected around the lateral. You'll see some of the photos in the report showing how there's been, rather than having proper joints, they've just thrown concrete over the top of it, so they're still leaking. This was done, I think, in the 60s or thereabouts. So our final cost we expected to be about $40,000 over the budget we had. So it'll come out at around about $324,000. But that is manageable within the budgets we've got. Thank you, Madam Chair. If there's any questions.
Thank you for the update. We have a few questions. Timo.
Thank you very much. Just on that Dovedale water scheme, have you had some conversation with the users of this scheme as well to talk about cost projections over the next 10-20 years?
We have not. We had regular meetings with the Water Users Committee and their chair. That committee has gone quiet for the last couple of years. I have been in touch with the chair from time to time, and we're looking at having an update in August, I think it was, with those that are interested to come along. Probably more of a community meeting than just a committee meeting. And to give them an update, and a update was circulated via Councillor McNamara this week on where we're at the moment and what's intended. But that is more to do with the community association than the water committee.
Do you think it would be useful to run a detailed consultation with each of the users of the scheme to make them aware of the costs that are coming over the next 10-20 years?
I don't believe so, because we have done that through the annual plan and the long-term plan, and they've been well aware of this through the committee for some time. We have done updates via emails in the past. We'll give them an update, I say, in August, but running a consultation, I don't believe that is our job on this at this stage. That is the task through the annual plan and the long-term plan.
Any further questions? Tim? No? Okay, then we'll move on. On my list, I have yes, I have noted that you're on the list to speak. The next I have is Kieran, and then it will be you, David.
Thank you. And through the chair, I have a question about, in particular, we had an incident on the 23rd of June where a contractor installing power lines near the Motueka Bridge broke a section of the water pressure main. I'm just wondering, in general, what is the practice for collecting these costs? Are those costs passed on to the contractors? Do they have a timeline to pay? How does that all actually work?
Through you, Madam Chair, absolutely. When we have a third-party damage like this, we keep a good record of what was required to repair it and all the staff involved, including the contractors, and then we bill them for it.
Can I add to that, Madam Chair, is that the contractors are supposed to contact us to find out where the services are. This particular contractor failed to do that. All the more reason why they get paid. If we told them where it is and they dig something up because it's in a different place, we carry the can. But in this case, they didn't check out where the infrastructure was.
Thank you for that. Board Member Ogilvie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And look, Mike, thank you very much for the work being done on the woodlands. It was actually 1957, so we were told that those pipes were first installed. And I'm pleased to hear about the ultraviolet improvements for the wastewater treatment plant. So thank you for that. A question I've got though, I think it was last year, there was a reference group established by council to look at the future treatment plants in Motueka. Has that group met recently, and when will it meet again, please?
Through you, Madam Chair, that group is still ongoing. They do have regular meetings. I don't attend the meetings myself, but I could find out and let you know when the next meeting is. Yep, certainly.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your question, and for the record, none of us councillors, I'm aware that those meetings are happening and we are not participating. So I'm really keen to find out where that's at and when we can next engage with that wider group. Okay, we're going to move on to Dean.
Thank you, through the chair. Water supply reactive costs. Well above budget and increasing each month. What's the deal here?
Through you, Madam Chair, this I take it you're talking about last year's financials. That was anticipated and it was reported on as of the first quarterly report in September last year that we were going to be over budget. We had a TOC that gave an indication of what the reactive costs would be, and that cost was halved for the budget, and it basically has turned out exactly as we predicted it would be. So it's not unexpected. Oh, sorry, the TOC is the total out-turn cost that we work through with our contractor of the budget that we would work to for the contract. And that ties in with our contractual obligations.
No further questions, Dean? Okay, then I'll go to Richard.
Can I just add to that when we work out the total out-turn costs for the contractor, we then adjust our budgets prior to the annual plan being finalised. And some of the councillors here recall the previous council did cut back some of those budgets, and that's one area that was cut back, and that's why we've exceeded it. And I think we outlined that at the report when we presented it to you back in May.
That being an unintended consequence of decision that councillors made?
You could say
that. We'll move on to Kit. Oh, we're whipping through this. Mike.
Through you, Madam Chair. No, I've got a question, but also I don't think Councillor McNamara has actually finished with his question.
Dean, would you like to go?
Well, it sounds I am, but I'm looking at the graph and we have the budget line, we have the top line, and then we have the actual line, which is higher than both of those. So I'm still confused.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's correct. So the budget line is typically done about a year before the financial year actually kicks off, right in the early stages of the annual plan or the long-term plan. We sit down and go through the TOC with the contractor between March and June of the year before the financial year kicks off, and that is based on actual work to date and routine maintenance, the requirements under the Water Services Act, and we come up with our budget at our TOC at a later stage. And yes, we undercooked the TOC a little bit at that stage, but we were not far off. As you recall, we had a large number of major water pipe breaks through the year, particularly down in Murchison.
Are we ready to move on now to Mike?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm going to inquiry about Motueka Wastewater Treatment Plant and how you've got what looks like a new disc aerator mixer. Is this a new design, or because typically I just thought it was pumps circulating the water around? Now you've got a disc. So how does that work? And is it new technology, or am I just old-fashioned?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, it is new technology, more improved technology. It's still a surface aerator, but a lot more efficient, both electrically and just the way it mixes. And this has been put in that particular location to improve or reduce the short circuiting across the pond, and basically kicks. That's because that's where that first pond goes into the second pond through a system of pipes just near the aerator. So as it gets near there, it kicks it back and circulates it and mixes it up a lot more. So it reduces short circuiting, increases the retention time of the pond, and therefore improves the treatment in the pond.
Increases the retention time. I thought we'd try and reduce the retention time to get the flow through. But the other thing, the other thing is, are you looking at using this technology at other ponds, like in Tapawera?
I think I misspoke there. Did I say reduce? I meant it increases the retention time to keep the liquids in the pond longer. Sorry.
I misheard you, sorry.
Yeah.
But are you looking at using this new technology at other locations now?
If appropriate. These are quite large ponds. Most of our other ponds are quite small, and we have several aerators on them already. And so the likes of, most of them are just aeration basins, which have quite significant aeration anyway. Not many of our ponds have the oxidation ponds that we have here. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Paul?
My questions is around the financial graphs in your report, page 157. So I see the routine actual budget, and then the reactive, which is considerably higher. I suppose I have two questions there. Firstly, the first question is how do you determine what goes into routine and reactive? Seems to be, there could be quite a lot of thinking there. The other aspect to it is how are we getting the money back? Or is it in the river budget?
Through you, Madam Chair. Let me answer the first one first about the routine and reactive. So we have had quite an issue with the reactive maintenance, as you can see. And what has happened in the last year or two is we've only got a fixed size of contractor staff, and so some of the routine reactive hasn't happened.
I see.
So we've actually underspent it, and because of the overspend on the reactive, at the moment, wastewater is actually one of the better ones. We're about 50-50 on reactive versus routine costs. When I got here a few years ago now, we were about 60-70% reactive, 30%, 40% routine. My target, and still is, to go to 60% routine costs, 40% reactive. And we're on track to get there, and especially with the level of renewal funding that we're looking at doing in the coming years through the water services strategy and the annual plan that we're kicking off with. And get that, and basically your routine is your planned maintenance. The stuff happens day out, day every week. Yeah. And with a contract, that's what they largely spend their time on. So when that gets disturbed, with reactive maintenance that's unexpected, you tip that balance over, and that's when the over expenditure happens.
So, Madam Chair, we got a very good dissertation from Susan on financial definitions. It'd be quite helpful for the team to actually look at those to flow into reports, because it gives greater clarity on where the money comes from in the budgets. So how are we going to get this money back? You say that it hasn't been spent in previous years and it's a carry through, is it?
No, basically the money for wastewater comes from PAN charges by and large, and trade waste charges.
Okay,
so it's ring fenced. It only comes from water. So if we overspend the budget, we've got to push the charges up the following year to recover them. But as you can see, there's a bit of a trade-off here with the under expenditure in routine and the over in reactive. So they both come out of the same source of funding.
So we're not short of $1. It's been received, but we haven't spent it. Is that correct?
We have spent it, but just in different areas. Yeah.
Beg pardon?
We just spent it in a different part of the wastewater budget.
Okay.
But we can't use water from wastewater in any other areas.
Yeah. No, I could just look at the word reactive, and it sort of, it's a flare there for me about, is it additional funding we need? But you're not arguing for that. It's already been received in the system.
We've got it there, but if we overexpend it at year end, if we have spent more in our wastewater budget than we had budgeted for, then certainly we'd have to recover it the following year, from the same account. Yep.
I'm just watching.
Yep.
Have you finished? Richard, would you like to add some more?
What Mike didn't tell you, Councillor Morgan, is that when we saw the reactive increasing, we worked with our contractor to see what we could reduce on the routine side, which was lower risk, so that we could save money to cover some of the costs of the reactive, and that's why it's slightly under. It is something that's not ideal, because there's some routine maintenance that we didn't do, but we had a conscious decision about the risks and everything. But in terms of overall, we have overspent, and that's what we reported back to you in May to get approval to spend for the extra 2 months. So, yeah. And further, tomorrow morning, look forward to coming along, because I'm going to give you a bit of a dissertation on asset management, on how we do reactive, how we do routine, and how the split is done.
Thank you for that. Do we have any further questions? Oh, Timo, sorry.
Thank you. Just one quick one. I feel like we're getting slightly conflicting messages here. Do you still feel that we're about 25 to 30 years behind on our renewals on our water infrastructure?
When I said that, I was talking about specific pipes. We have some pipes that are 25 years past their renewal date. I think the worst for wastewater was 29 years, but that might only be a couple of 100 meters. Yeah. There's a whole range. Our weighted average age of pipes is about 20 years.
Is that 1 meters?
Yes. Yeah. So that's the weighted average. But yeah, we certainly do have some pipes that are a bit older than that.
Well, that's, I suspect, to be expected. That some pipes are older and need replacing.
Yeah, but you'd expect to.
But if you if you look at an average of where you would like to be, do you think we're behind? Are we?
Yes, we are
okay?
behind.
How far behind are we?
We are most definitely behind. When you have an age for a pipe, you expect to replace it on that date. You don't expect to have pipes that are still in the ground 10 or 20 years after the replacement date, unless something unusual is happening in the ground and the pipes are of a better condition, which we haven't had the funding to do, is actually do some condition assessment of buried assets. We will then know the true life expectancy of the pipes, and we have requested some funding in the water services strategy to undertake that, so we can actually be more accurate. And basically you want to replace the pipes just in time. Your smaller diameter pipes, those that are less than 150 mils diameter, you can take a chance because they are smaller pipes and they only affect a few houses. Over 150 diameter pipes, you're going to expect hundreds of houses maybe, and that's a huge impact. It's too big a risk to take. So especially on the large diameter pipes, you want to actually, the very large diameter pipes like your main line to a treatment plant or from a water supply, you actually want to replace those before they fail. You don't want to have them failing on you unexpectedly.
So we know we're behind. We don't think we're 25 or 30 years behind. And we don't know exactly how far behind we are.
No, we're on a weighted average, we're about 20 years behind.
But through you, Madam Chair, can I just
Sure.
add to that even though we're 20 years behind, Mike has just said we haven't done any condition reporting. Some of those pipes are still in good condition and may last another 20 years. So it doesn't mean we have to replace them now. That assumption was made just on age, not on the condition of it and the material type or anything like that. So we've got to do a lot more research and conditioning. Wastewater and stormwater are quite easy to condition because you can put cameras up. Water is a bit more difficult. You have to actually expose the pipe, and we try and do that when we have a leak to see what the condition is like. So there's a whole lot more work to be done on that to actually give more confidence about what our renewal profile is going to be. But if a pipe is estimated at 60 years and it lasts 80, that's brilliant. So we can say it's 20 years beyond its replacement life, but if it's still in good condition, why not just leave it going? So even though we say 20 years behind, doesn't mean we're having a train crash at this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be good to know exactly what the condition of these pipes is, because otherwise I suspect that when a pipe becomes 20 years older than it should be, we see an increase in reactive maintenance.
I can give you an example. When I was in Christchurch and after the earthquakes down on the Avon River, there was an AC pipe there that had fractured because of the ground movement, and that was in 2013. When I looked at the AC pipe, it was 100mm AC. It still had the blue writing on it from 1962. It was a brand new pipe. Because of the environment it was in, it hasn't weathered, it was still perfectly good, and that pipe, if it wasn't for the earthquake, would have probably lasted another 50 or 60 years. So that's the point I'm making. The age of a pipe is one component we use at this point in time. There's a whole lot of other factors. Who installed it, how it was installed, what sort of operating pressure it's under. So it's not just the age. At this point in time, we've told you that we're 20 years behind according to age, but that may not mean that we're 20 years behind in terms of our renewals.
When do we have a clear view of the condition of these assets?
Well, we've just outlined, we're going to be covering it tomorrow, we've got funding in the water services strategy for the next few years to actually do a lot more condition monitoring so that we can become more certain about the renewal profile going forward.
Mike, have you got something further?
I do, thank you, Madam Chair. One thing that will come back through the long term of the water service strategy is condition assessment is extremely expensive. I did condition assessment about 25 years ago on the regional scheme when it was AC pipes, and that was $10,000 a site at that time. We're probably talking $20,000 to $30,000 a site for a large diameter pipe that is a meter or so underground. And so that's why we have to look at how we do condition assessment. So every time we have a break, we take a sample, take a photo, we assess it, we look at the age, and we try and build up our profile. But if a pipe's are not failing, we don't have, and if you're doing, as I say, probably 20,000 minimum a site now to do condition assessment, you've got to be very careful where and how you do those assessments, and you're only going to do them at those pipes that are at risk. So your large diameter pipes, predominantly, as I said, the smaller pipes, less than 150 diameter, they can fail and they'll have a minimum impact. So at the moment, until a street fails 3 or 4 times, we're not going to replace that pipe. Because then that's showing, well, that's 3 or 4 times, yes, that pipe is probably at life end then. But you're not going to go spend $20,000 on each of those streets just to see how many years it's got at this stage. So it's a real, you got to take quite a scientific approach to how you do it and assess the data that you've got.
I continue to be confused. Should we give you more money for renewals or not?
Yes, you should. But it's how we spend that money. It needs to be cost effective as well and get the right result.
Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you for that response to Mark G.
Thanks. Just on following on from that conversation before I come to my question, we do have a complete registry of all our assets and what pipes we've laid down, so that when we do have a pipe of a particular age, particular spec that's clearly disintegrated or not meeting its expectations, that we know where other similar pipes are that we can then investigate to check to see.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes we do, but there's a whole range of conditions. It's traffic loading, are they in the road, are they in the berm, what is the groundwater depth like, what is the soil like, how acidic is the soil, what's the content in the pipes for wastewater, what is the trade waste that's going into there. So there's numerous factors you've got to take into account. So it's a very complex modelling, and at the moment we predominantly use pipe material and age, and we're slowly building up this other information, and we overlay that. But as I say, it takes a bit of work to analyse that data as well.
Yeah. So I understand where you're coming from. I do think if we've got particular pipes that are disintegrating earlier than expected, that should trigger at least an assessment of the other pipes we're aware of that are of a similar spec, just to make sure that they're not experiencing the same issue, regardless of all the variables. But I'll just leave that there for now. The question I had was in relation to Easby Park. So that was really interesting. I saw the photographs. 140 mils of rain. It was still being cleared by the contractor for some debris. What's the plan if we have a rain event that is larger than 140, given how close to the edge that water was looking like spilling over, especially into the park? And then is there secondary path flows for that water?
So Easby has got several next triggers and levels. It was only being cleared on the lower level. It's got another step level to go, and then it's the top of the inlet after that, which will still hold some of that waste. By that stage, it's backing up and flowing over the side into the new detention pond and scruffy dome that we've got in the park alongside. And there's a berm alongside the playground there, which diverts it there. And then the fourth step is it actually ends up going down the street.
Yep, and that goes down into the stormwater and through other people's properties, given the experience of 2013. So how much water do we think the system can now cope with, like in terms of mils? Clearly it can cope with 140.
Our secondary flow paths we're working towards a 100-year return period.
So what's that in rainfall mils?
That depends very much on the catchment, the intensity of rain, the duration of rain, and there's several of those. So that's why we just refer to a return period. The actual pipe networks, our standard now is a 1 in 10 year, but we know that most of our networks are more like 1 in 5 because that was the standard until 20 years ago. So we are in stormwater, we are well behind our capacity.
Yeah, really appreciate that. I'm just trying to get a sense of Easby's coped pretty well, but the photograph was looking like it could nearly go over the bank. There are secondary processes. I'm just wondering, we used to have a little digger there, as you acknowledged in your report, to cope with the risk of the water not going down the thing or overflowing and being able to mitigate any damage. What's our plan for higher rainfall events? We just let the system cope or not cope, or is that the plan?
We have got a level sensor there that tells us at the level throughout the event, and people keep an eye on that. Once it gets to the higher level, you're probably not going to get a digger in there anyway, which is why we've got the secondary flow path and the bypass and then ultimately the road network. But yes, we don't design for more than a 100-year return period storm event.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to give confidence to the people who are living around it, who've already seen the impact of the changes, which is so far so positive. But I imagine there still might be some angst on heavier rain events. Just want to provide reassurance that we are aware of its limitations and we have a plan in place if it gets a bit higher. That's all.
Do you have any other further questions, Mark?
Also, Wilkes, which feeds into the park, how did that cope? There wasn't a picture of that. Usually has these big bauble things that lift up the gates, and it's been prone to flooding. How did that survive the event?
Through Madam Chair, I'm not aware of any flooding over the road of Washbourne Drive, so I assume those floats did their job as usual. But we did get very full in Washbourne Gardens itself.
Yeah. I mean, that often is the detention pond. Yeah, just really interested to know how that went in that event as well. I know that's a lot of anxiety for some properties down that area that have flooded in the past. And again, that's why I continue to emphasise investment in stormwater.
Through Madam Chair, the only issue we had at Washbourne Gardens and that was a wheelbarrow came down there and blocked that, and they had to clear the wheelbarrow out the way, but then it went back to usual. And I think the system performed really well. In fact, all our systems in that event performed really well. So 3 or 4 sites in particular around the district that we've had issues with, even up until the last rain event, we had no issues. It was a quiet night for us, which is quite nice.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mark, for your questions. Just a quick one, piggyback off that before I move on to other councillors, and Dave, you'll be after me, is that Easby Park with those level sensors, are they a new addition?
I think we've had them there for about a year. We put them in after last year's July events. And yeah, so now they are alarmed and they alert both my staff and the contractor staff.
And are the residents in that area aware that we have those in place?
The ones that have been affected, yes.
Thank you. We'll move on now to Dave.
Thank you, through the chair. Look, I just want to echo some of the other councillors' comments around some of the conflicting statements, and I do hope that we get a more consistent message going forward, because this is a very important area for us as an infrastructure provider. So we've heard that the original commentary around the 25 years behind came from questioning around the blowout and the reactive maintenance budget. That response was accepted, and I think we've got a good outcome in focusing on renewals in the annual plan. But subsequent commentary around that the pipes might be older and still in good condition, or that the blowout was caused by previous decisions by the councillors in prior triennial to reduce the budget, they're not helpful. That just serves to confuse the issue. So I'm really hopeful that we get a more consistent message going forward about the true state of our pipework and infrastructure. And that's just a comment, and I'll leave it at that.
Comment noted. We will move on to Timo.
Yeah, thank you very much for indulging me with so many questions on this paper. This is my last one, I promise. I believe that I read in your material that there was a sense that intensification is driving a need for a higher capacity in the stormwater network. So my question to you is, how is that interface working between what you're doing and planning? Because I mean, there are obviously other ways of dealing with stormwater. We've got water sensitive urban design principles that could be applied where there's more permeable space available, even though we are intensifying, where we're surfacing streams and so on, which would reduce the demand on your stormwater system and therefore the cost of that system as well. So my question is, have you got influence on, say, rules of Plan Change 81 that are coming up now?
No, certainly we have raised our concerns of intensification across the board and the impact that it's going to have on all our water services. And certainly we take opportunities to upgrade where we can. So a good example of that is just down the bottom of McGlashan's, where we've put in significant pipe work when that new work has been undertaken down there. I think we put in 3 different pipes, including under the road and down into the beach road there. And so we take those opportunities to increase the pipe work. The issue we have is intensification can happen anywhere. And unless we actually have a program of intensification and target areas and upgrade the pipes in that area until it's fully developed, we're going to be having this challenge where we don't have the capacity in the areas that have been identified for intensification.
Sorry, through the chair, I think you misunderstood my question. But in a way confirmed my suspicions that is not really a drive towards water-sensitive urban design principles from you to planning. There are other ways of dealing with stormwater, and intensification doesn't have to result in massively increased runoffs if it's designed properly. And I would have hoped that there is some interaction between stormwater and planning to make sure that the sort of intensification that we are getting won't give us those issues that you've just described.
Normally in developments like this, we put rules on if it's going to have an impact on runoff. We say, right, whatever your design does, the runoff is not going to be any quicker than it was prior to the development. That will apply with intensification as well. So that will basically force developers to do on-site soakage so that it doesn't impact. They can then say, well, we can't afford to do that, we haven't got the space. Right, well then you need to pay to upgrade our pipes to deal with your runoff. That's the philosophy we take, and we take that across the organisation.
But that is a fundamentally different comment than Mike just made.
Now, at the moment we have our stormwater system in Richmond is designed 20 plus years ago, and with the rainfall intensities now, at a 1 in 100 year rainfall, everything in Richmond is red, full capacity. So overland flow path is taken over. So that's before we've done any intensification in Richmond at all. So my comment to you is this: if somebody wants to intensify and increase runoff their property, our comment to them is right. You cannot run off any more than you do now. So you have to do something internally, or look at upgrade our articulation so we can cater for it. So that's a consistent answer.
Sure, Mike.
Yeah, so sensitive design, yes, we do certainly take into account, but need to bear in mind that that is for your typical business as usual rainfall. We still got to have systems to cope with the 1 in 100 year flood and so on. So we're talking like 1 in 5 or 1 in 10, and yeah, a lot of areas can handle that right now, but not the higher levels that we've been experiencing in recent years.
Thank you for your responses. Paul, do you have one more question?
Thanks very much. That was a very interesting comment. So intensification, basically, our capacity is utilised. A fair comment?
For stormwater, yes,
Yes.
and wastewater, yes.
Yeah.
Water supply, we'd probably get a little bit more capacity.
Okay, there's a little bit of capacity there. So in greenfields, the question is, what's the high-level analysis of greenfield capacity? I'm not talking on the development. I'm talking our infrastructure similar to the intensification.
It depends where the development is occurring.
Yes.
At the moment, you'll know that you've got funding in place to upgrade water and wastewater from Richmond right through to Wakefield. So any development along that corridor, we could probably accommodate. But other areas, there will be a challenge.
Yeah, so it's got the same situation. Yeah, and the question is who's going to pay, and our strategy is the developer will pay, which is a very reasonable one, I might say. Okay, so I think it's having the picture as we've been discussing over the last 5 months of clarity of where there's capacity and or not, and you'd want to use it, wouldn't you? So as that comes through in planning, we need to see that the planning, the infrastructure and the transport integrated and aligned as we see in the LTP, and why PC81 is so good. It's really delivering for us. I love that smile. No further comment, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your report. Thank you for the robust discussions that we've been able to have. We will move on now. We will invite up to the table Trevor James. Sorry, Grant, I knew you'd think that was your key. So the annual Contact Recreational Water Quality Report. Thank you for rushing in from wherever you've been to be with us this morning. Welcome back, Muka. Sorry, yes, page 103.
Kia ora. Well, my intention is to take this report as read and answer questions. Thank you.
Just going to give the councillors a chance to get to 103 on their laptops. I guess my feedback to you, Trevor, is that having spoken to Mason from Kaiteri Reserve, they're very, very grateful for the work that you've done and how they've been able to collaborate with you. And I guess for us, that's giving us some really good indicators and outcomes. So on behalf of Kaiteri Tiri, a big thank you for what you're doing.
Yes. Kia ora.
Brent?
Thank you, through the chair. Just talk me through Stevens Bay, because it's interesting. So Lagoon High, beachfront, okay.
Mm-hmm.
How does this work?
So the lagoon receives the stream coming down the gully above, and there is far less dilution. Once it gets out into the Stevens Bay beach area, it's all that sea mass and a lot of dilution. So as the tide comes in and that stream starts to mix with it and then go out, that's when it's most sort of concentrated. We, as mentioned, there's a wastewater pipe in that area, and we've just heard through the grapevine a possible other source that we'll be investigating next year as well. But that wetland in Stevens Valley is like a sponge, and it just soaks up those contaminants and then just lets them go over time.
Okay, well, will you look? I can come back to you. We'll move on to Dean.
Thank you, Trevor, through the chair. Just one comment on the only 4 dogs or whatever it was. Probably we didn't need the only word in there. If you were one of the 4 dog owners, probably wouldn't appreciate it. Yeah. In terms of the contaminated ruhi that we apply and how we may be able to lift it sooner, and we appear to be constrained by Nelson City once again. Are they not coming to the party to look at this, or this is a validated model, depends on whether Nelson City Council was interested in it?
There seem to be 2 questions there. One about the rahui and how that's implemented and lifted, and the other one about the model to better predict the risk to health from swimming. The first question, there was a rahui in about 2 or so months ago, I think in late May, whereby we weren't informed with how that was set, and I inquired with our e-liaison officers, and they had no knowledge of it either. So I don't really know to answer the question about the rahui. The worst some moves last year in June to develop some protocols around that and how we communicate, but they haven't been completed. So the next question about the model. Yes, it's unfortunate we had the money available, budgeted for the working on the first stage of the model. We are quite clear that we wanted it as a joint model between both councils. We jointly manage the Tasman Bay. It mixes together. There's a lot of reasons why we would want to go in partnership for development of such a model. So yes, we didn't get there. Funding, part of what I understand is all the restructuring and so forth made, they were just retreating from new projects.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess it's just concerning that our joint mayor, who's always going on about amalgamation, fails to step up to the party frequently when we're trying to work together. Sorry for my confusion. I didn't realise that 55 and 56 were completely separated. I thought the one was based on the other, but now I'm even more concerned that we're implementing Rahui's somehow, but nobody knows how, or the trigger points or things. So how are we going to sort that issue out?
We as a council are not the ones that set Rahui. It is iwi collective, Ngā Iwi decision, and they just come to us for information and advice, and then they will set the Rahui and then lift the Rahui. And we have gathered together to work through some protocols. But it's only our suggestions. It's really up to them to set those protocols.
No further questions from you, Dean? Timo?
Thank you, yeah. Thanks for your report. I mean, the thing that stands out, same as the Deputy Mayor, is obviously picking up on Stevens Bay Lagoon. I mean, that seems to be the one area where we've got consistent and fairly high exceedances, 45%, I think I take from your report. So my question is about how do we remediate the situation? Clearly we need to do something about it. Are we clear yet about what is causing these exceedances? I think you mentioned further infill development. I thought it looked like greenfield development, but maybe that's a few years back now. What's happening up there, causing more runoff and therefore maybe being a source of the pollution. So do we know whether the design standards of that particular subdivision have been insufficient? And if so, who's actually paying the cost of the remediation of this issue?
Oh, I'd like to have Jeff Cuthbertson or someone else from our wastewater team with us. You mentioned runoff and stormwater. I think our stormwater team could give some information here as well, but I think the runoff and stormwater is probably a minor contributor compared to the potential from wastewater. The main contributor from stormwater is most likely from dog feces, and from my discussions with locals at Stevens Bay and my observations from the summer students who take the samples and others that dog owners are actually reasonably good at picking up after their dogs in that area, certainly down near the lagoon and beach in particular. The wastewater situation, you would have read in the report that there is now a move to more regularly inspect the wastewater pipes. So there was an ingress of roots into those pipe systems, and that could have been the reason for that potential discharge from the pipes. So yeah, we're hoping, the Royal We, the wastewater team, hope that that'll be reduce that risk of the overflows. I guess my point about the developments is that potential more loading to that pipework of the wastewater rather than the runoff. But I understand that planning is quite rigorous in terms of those aspects of the pipe capacity. This particular pipe is just a feeder pipe. It's not the main trunk, so it doesn't have a high load. And I understand that the new subdivision is feeding into more of the main trunk, and rather than this feeder line up the valley.
So it's a maintenance issue of the wastewater system rather than a design issue of the wastewater system.
That's my understanding. Our wastewater engineers, I did invite them to today's meeting, that they would be able to concur or otherwise maybe comment. Yep.
So we are in the process of fixing the problem, yeah?
Improving the maintenance schedule to try and alleviate the problem rather than fixing with a larger capacity or pipe or what have you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Celia.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the report, Trevor. Look, I've just got a question about the cyanobacteria, the Microcoleus, which is a native bacteria, isn't it?
That's correct.
And so when you describe the conditions that where it can multiply and be a problem, you include the presence of nutrients as one of those conditions. Now, does there always have to be nutrients present, or can it actually increase in the absence of nutrients? So, it's just helpful to know if we've got it in, in a stream, it's dry weather, etc., etc. Is there an issue with, management of, farm waste further up or coming from septic tanks or whatever, or can it exist just because of drought or other conditions?
Thank you, Councillor Butler. It's not so much the nutrients that are the major, it's the fine sediment. I do a lot of backcountry ski touring, and I've seen it at the base of glaciers where the glacial till comes out of underneath the ice, and once it gets the light, this Microcoleus starts to become quite prevalent. And you can imagine in those high mountain environments, so it's like the rock snot that we have in the Upper Buller that also can proliferate in very low nutrient conditions. So, yeah, this organism is very good at mining the nutrients out of the fine sediment by creating a little acidic conditions inside its biofilm, and so that's how it can get such a wide coverage of the bed relatively quickly. So I guess it's another reason why managing of fine sediment discharges into our waterways is important. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Celia. We'll move on to Mark.
Thanks, Chair. I was just wondering if there's any more insight on Behara, Trevor. It's been an ongoing issue for nearly a decade now. Do we know what's driving the Behara problem, or have we just given up? Where are we?
We don't give up. We prioritise our investigations, so we can't do everything all at once. Behara hasn't been a priority to investigate because it has had very good water quality for the last 5 or so years, to the point where it achieved a good category, the official grading, as of the previous season. So the the trouble with state environment monitoring, like the river water quality, like the swimming water quality, is that we aren't sampling all the way up every catchment all the time, because that is quite, as you can imagine, a major expense. So this program is really good for identifying where the problems are. If it's a consistent problem, and a big enough problem, then we prioritise it for investigations upstream. So the short answer is no, we don't know in this occasion, but it is enough to promote an investigation for this coming season. You will note, though, that there are conditions at which we find high enterococci at Pahara is around the high tide time, when there's a lot of mixing of the material right at the top of the high tide line, where there's a lot of debris, a lot of leaf matter, twigs and what have you, and that's an environment where these fecal indicator bacteria proliferate. They can grow in warm summer conditions, and so it could well be that it's a natural problem, but to say precisely whether it's natural is involves quite a lot of scientific investigation and expense. Thank you.
Yeah, I just note that it's been an issue in the past. I think when I first came on board, and we were trying to track down the source, and it sparked up again. So it would be good to put this one to bed at some point.
Yes.
So we understand a bit more of what's driving it.
Yeah, you probably recall it back, was it something in the order of 5 or 6 years ago, when a cross connection was found in a property in the Pahara, a few houses back from the beachfront, and after that time, our results at the beach became much more compliant. Whether that was coincidence or whether that was due to that pipe is open to suggestions, but I think it certainly would have helped to fix that cross connection.
Thank you.
Alrighty, that seems to be all of our questions for now. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for coming in person to present to your report. So, councillors, we're going to move on to the last report.
Thank you.
So, Reserves Facility, 6 monthly update from Grant Rayburn. And it does have John written down here on my report, but you might want some friends to come and join you as and when. And councillors, we're looking at page 167.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Given that we're at the end of the agenda, I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
We'll kick off with Dean.
Thank you. Just one quick one. The new irrigation system in the park across the road, is that a drip irrigation or is that? It is.
Drip by the sound of it.
Just wondering whether it was connected to the item above about sleeping habits, but no.
No, it might be a coincidence.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Just on the toilet facility refurbishment work that you're doing, are we taking the opportunity as part of these refurbishments to adopt a more agile system for our toilets, i.e. that they can be removable or movable and redeployed rather than just creating permanent features? Are we taking that opportunity to do that? And given this, I think, is the last report of the day, Madam Chair, I just wonder if I can also ask a non-reserve question, which is, at past forums, you've allowed councillors to seek reports. I'm just wondering how we are managing monitoring those requests. And I just wonder whether it would be useful to have your own report that maybe provides an update on where that is. But I'll wait for staff to answer their question first, and maybe you might want to respond to the question I've given you.
So, through the chair, in answer to your question, Mark, so the recent refurbishments have been of existing toilet blocks. I think they've been primarily concrete block, so difficult to move or be sort of flexible in their usage. But we've had new treatment of the exterior in many cases. We've had new flooring systems to enable easier cleaning. They've often got coved edges on the floor so that you can get into those corners easily, and new fittings. But generally the structure remains as it was. There's a few minor changes to bring them up to standard in terms of accessibility. But Tony may want to speak to that a little bit more.
Through the chair, I think, are you asking about whether we're creating new toilets and having them portable? Is that your question?
Well, I suppose my question is if the cost of repairing and refurbishing them would be pretty much close to just creating or buying a new, more portable toilet, then we should maybe be exploring that.
Well, through the chair, I don't think we have looked at that. I guess we can. We could come back and do some cost analysis on that. But generally, when you're looking at getting rid of the waste, we need to make sure whether that's where the areas are. You probably have to have a sucker truck a lot of the time anyway. So happy to look at it. But John, have you got something to say?
I just wanted to say, Mark, I think when we did the group of activities, you see we've got a lot of toilets. So part of the work the team are doing is actually how can we rationalise those toilets, because we've probably got double that other councils have got. So they've I think over time we've just inherited or whatever reason. So we need to have a really good look at our system and make sure it's actually relevant now. So it's a part of the LTP work we need to do, Mark, to do that rationalisation work.
Yeah, so it was raised in annual plans, in the annual plan environment, that we need to be more agile with our toilet resources. Gives us the opportunity to also redeploy where toilets are being underutilised to areas that might be better utilised, and also gives us the opportunity. And I think McKee Domain was an example of where a toilet got completely destroyed by weather. Had it been portable, we could have removed it before the weather event and brought it back afterwards and avoided all that cost of damage. So I think there are some advantages to being more agile with our toilet infrastructure. And if we've got the opportunity, as in if the cost of refurbishment is effectively the same as implementing a new, more portable toilet, then maybe we should be looking at that. So just providing that incentive, I suppose. I keep trying to provide that incentive, but I'm just seeing no movement on it. So that would be really good. So thank you for your answer. I'll keep monitoring and pushing on this space. Madam Chair, would you like to respond to your question?
Thank you, and thank you for your question, Mark. I have spoken to staff about getting an updated action list from them, and it is a work in progress, but thank you for the reminder.
How far away do you think it will be?
How long's a piece of string?
It can't be hard to do, surely.
So the staff member that I've been working with has been off for a couple of weeks, so when she's back, it is, I believe, part of her to-do list. Hoping I might have a response next week to share with you all.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Again, it's around priorities. What's the highest priority for some of our staff, to be fair? Not diminishing that my forum isn't of value. Just quickly add in. So I'm next to speak. I see over across the way there, Dean may have mentioned something, but I probably going to mention something slightly different than the drippers to feed the new planting. I guess it is nice that you've made it safe for some people, but I guess for me it's like, where have we moved those residents onto? So I know that some of them may have filtered over from Nelson when they used the Move On framework that they have, and I'm pleased that we didn't use that framework. We've moved them on by an environmental change. My concern is, and would you know, have they popped up somewhere else?
Through Madam Chair, funny you ask. Yes, we've we've got a problem now. The gentleman has moved into Jubilee toilet as of yesterday. Caused some problems. We've got that toilet shut down for the moment. It's all boarded off. I've been speaking with Kyle Abbott from police. We have already kind of drafted up a trespass notice, but as you say, it's not helping with the problem. It's difficult to manage from our end. How do we deal with it? We're not social services. Parks would like to try to help, but what we're doing is we will reopen that toilet this Friday. It's going to be all cleaned. It's pretty dirty. There's graffiti, it's vandalism, but that's not the main issue. So I understand, when we do trespass, and that has happened in the past in Motueka, we're not dealing with the problem, but I see it as not our problem, unfortunately. So I don't know what the solution is.
Are we at a position where you can get some agencies to sit around with us and collaborate on what options there may be?
Yes, I guess. I went down to the toilet yesterday after coming back from Motueka, and it was kind of disheartening to see this situation. So I don't know what the social services are. I'm not a counsellor. I don't have the background. But if there was a way of sort of helping this gentleman or anybody else, then we'd prefer to do that, because we're just pushing it around. I mean, we know probably where he might end up going once he's been trespassed. So I don't have an answer.
Happy to talk to you offline with the next part of it, but it's good for us all to be aware that when we do an environmental change of an environment, generally the unintended consequences that you push it onto your neighbour. I have one other question. However, I'm pretty sure that Brent wants to chirp in. Is it on the same topic we've just covered? I'll let you do that and I'll come back to my question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the ones that you've done in Motueka. So I have absolutely sympathy for people who have found themselves in a situation where they may be homeless and not have a lot of choices. And they're not the people that we come to you with in terms of the problem. But when the behaviour is unacceptable around families, children and people that live in the streets, I think you're right. It's not our role in terms of the social service part, but our role is to make sure that those places are available and accessible by all of our community. So I guess I'm a little bit more hard-nosed in terms of if it's the behaviour and actions that's an issue, then you have limited tools but the trespass. And you have my full support for that. Not just because somebody's in a situation where it's a lifestyle that's different from mine. It's if the behaviour is unacceptable to the general public and it starts having safety concerns. So I know it was uncomfortable for a couple of ones in our area, but absolutely the residents thank you, and I thank you for doing that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
I guess there's difference between choosing to live rough and then being potentially pushed off your premises due to not being able to afford it in today's crises that we all face. My second thing was around community housing. Thank you for the update. It's interesting, isn't it, that our waiting list doesn't seem to decrease. And when we take people onto that waiting list, how do we update them as to how quick? Because our movements within our units are very reduced, which is a good thing because it means our tenants are quite happy in that space. But how do we communicate how long they may be on a waiting list? But again, that could be how long's a piece of string.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. You are right. I don't have a crystal ball. There's only two ways that tenants typically move out of one of our warm, dry, affordable homes, and that's into assisted care or permanently. So we have a huge wait list. It's always huge. People drop off it because they found something else in the interim, or because occasionally when I show people it's not what they want, in which case they're not high needs. So that's why the list doesn't really go up much when we have a vacancy. The different areas have different wait times, and generally when someone goes on to the wait list, I give them a phone call, say, I've received your application, we've put you on the wait list. It is significant. For instance, the last person I tenanted had been waiting for X number of years, and that's really all we can do. Sometimes we have a big push and I can get lots of people on, and sometimes they wait for a very long time.
Thank you for that. And lastly, where's the giraffe?
I think he's at Rabbit Island. I think. Yeah, temporarily. I think. I'm not quite sure. Stephen Richards is dealing with that one. I didn't think this would be a question, but I see there's a photograph of it. So
I think the plan, though, is to auction off the giraffe for hospice, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Our next big heave, I understand. Okay, we have quite a few to speak. Mike is next.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. Mine's quite a simple little question. We've been traditionally, well, over the last few years, been doing up a lot of playgrounds, thinking in our area, Fultoners Bush, but you've also got other playgrounds that you're doing up. Have you got a standard template that you must have a swing, a roundabout, whatever, or do you just say, let's just throw it out to the public and see what they come back with?
Through the chair, it's probably a combination. If it's a new playground, we'll go out to the public and we'll go to local residents in those areas. If it's an existing one, we may go out to residents, but no two are the same. We know what items are popular. You know, there's always, swings, and some of the traditional things remain popular, but there's more of an emphasis on natural play. And that can often be a lower cost option as well, which is great. And also, it may be that we can alter things more easily than if you've got a permanent, steel structure that's concreted in with a big, foundation. So it's a bit of a mix, really.
So just one last little question through you, Madam Chair. We used to have fitness stations around some of our playgrounds reserves. They seem to be a dying breed, or are we putting them in, or we're not putting them in, or we're looking after them?
Through the chair, so we've still got them fitness equipment. We haven't put any in for a couple of years, but there's some down in Berryfields, Jubilee, Bill Wilkes, Motueka, Saxton. So yes, they're still there and quite well used.
Thanks, Mike. Mark, did you still have a question?
No, you asked the question I was going to ask, which was there was a lot of interest on the giraffe on Council's Facebook page. So it's good that it's going to auction for hospice. I imagine hopefully we'll announce that on our Facebook page so we get a lot of bidders. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of interest in the Easby Park giraffe from the public. My suggestion was going to be a Climbing Rose feature in Washbourne Gardens if it was an auction for hospice.
Thank you for that. Paul.
Great to see the report on the basketball hoops. Very, very good. My question is around Saxton Park. It's been mesmerising me since our workshop and our subsequent discussions. And I suppose one of the things that came out of the discussion, Madam Chair, was it's sort of difficult to get a grip of the annual spend. So I was just wanting to note and make sure in the LTP process we're quite specific in being clear on what the Saxton Park joint venture contributions are going through the period of time. there's that side of it, the budgeting side, and also the revenue side of that asset. I did have the good fortune of talking to one of our joint partner councillors the other night. He feels we can do better with revenue generation on the park, and we might be able to think through that. But I was a bit concerned how much we're actually spending there, and we need a better grip on it, in my view, to where that's going. And the other aspect is, I did argue that the pool is a regional asset, and I feel we should be more formal in our approach, Madam Chair, about advocating for Nelson contributing to the cost. Okay, I'll put that on the table. Kia ora.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that have come up today that we would like to add to long-term plan discussions, and I'll follow that up as actions with our staff. One is fees and charges for the dairy compliance, and the other one is obviously what you've just raised around Saxton costs, pool, etc. What are you trying to say? Oh, okay. No more questions? Oh, thank you very much for your report. Sorry to put you on the hot spot there, Tony. Yeah, we appreciate what you guys do and the multifacets of what you deliver on in our district. So thank you. And that is a wrap for today. So before Kieran does our closing karakia, I'd like to thank the staff for the efforts of supporting us. Thank you, councillors, for coming in and making yourselves available.
And I will also thank the chair. Kia hiki te korero, kia wātea, kia mama te manoa o te tangata, kia u ki te ara mō tātou e ora nei, ko rongo, ki runga, kia tina, huie, taikie. So let the discussions be lifted, clear away, and ease the hearts of people. Keep focus on the path of life. Peace is upheld. Say yes, bind together, and so it is.